the next generation of lifestyle awareness that will transform your life significantly. Hi, welcome to Living Wow Out Loud. I'm your host, Callie Ray, founder of the Living Wow Center and author of the book, 8 Lessons Lupus Taught Me, From Surviving to Thriving with Autoimmune Diseases. Living Wow is a lifestyle of choice and intention that was born from the truths that, number one, your body is designed to heal if you give it the environment to do so. Number two, you don't need a label or permission to be the expert in your own body. And number three, more than 80% of all diseases can be prevented or reversed by lifestyle. Unfortunately, this isn't what we're taught in our standard American diet and lifestyle culture. This podcast is a voice of hope and community where you will learn how to live a life of thriving that honors and embraces those three truths. Though you are an individual, you are not alone, and you can thrive living wow too. Welcome back to Living Wow Out Loud. I am your host, Callie Ray, and boy, am I rusty. It has been a long time since I've downloaded a new episode or recorded a new episode, and I am back, and I'm super excited about this, but there have been many changes that have happened since I took what I thought was going to be a 3-month pause from the podcast so that I could get through that senior year of high school with my last daughter at home, and it turned into a 1.5 years. So I'm back, but my podcast platform has changed. Anchor had sold to Spotify, so I'm learning a new platform. In addition, you can see me now. So we'll see how this works out, but I am live in studio in video instead of just audio. I'm used to being on camera every day doing teletherapy, but it's a little bit different and it's a little nerve-wracking. And so I finally just decided I'm just going to push play, and hopefully you'll give me some grace and you'll understand that I strive for excellence, not perfection. So sometimes things can be a little cringy. That's me. And that's the whole point of thriving with autoimmune diseases. I really want you to understand and know that it's real, and that the struggle is real, and that it's not perfect, but it can be wow, and it can be thriving, and it doesn't have to be pain and fatigue and just all of the different side effects to medications. There's so much that goes into autoimmune diseases, health in general, right? But I'm here to be an advocate for you, to be and hopefully an inspiration for you to understand that you can thrive with autoimmune diseases, and that it's not just about surviving. Maybe this is the very first time you've ever heard of me. This is the podcast you landed on. That's the way podcasts work, right? You just can kind of randomly get an episode. So if you don't know me, I'll do a quick introduction. I am Callie Ray Stone, and I live with 3 different autoimmune diseases. It started with rheumatoid arthritis before they called it autoimmune disease. They called it a degenerative disease back then. And I lived with that for many years. And then had lupus, systemic lupus erythematosus, that I lived with for about 11 years before I actually was diagnosed. Then oral lichen planus was the final diagnosis that actually took the layers off the onion and revealed the lupus. So I lived with all of them. I'm still living with them, but they are no longer my enemy, or I'm not angry at my body for betraying me anymore. I've worked through that. And I went through a period from my 40th birthday to about my 48th, I believe, was when I actually published the book. So it was a 5-year transformation from surviving to thriving. And when I got to the end of that transformation, I realized that it didn't look like the healthcare professionals had told me it would look. It didn't look like the internet had told me it was going to look. And so I realized that I felt amazing. I felt better than I've ever felt in my adult life. Not only did I feel good, I looked good. I was thriving. And it took a lot of work and a lot of study, a lot of um, deep dive. So that's why I wrote the book. I wrote the book, 8 Lessons Lupus Taught Me from Surviving to Thriving with Autoimmune Diseases, to give that hope to you, to be able to give you an alternative narrative, to be a person who actually is living it and thriving. And since that time, I'm not alone. And we now are having science research that's coming out that's actually giving the why I had the experience that I've had, and that I'm not just a one off. I'm not an anomaly, but that it is lifestyle, and that our lifestyle really does affect our health and can change things from, yes, we have a genetic predisposition, but that doesn't mean that it's set in stone. And we're starting to really understand that. So I published the book and then realized that it wasn't going to help anybody if nobody knew about it. And so we went about Change Your Story, which Change Your Story may be how you found out about me. That was, we were traveling all around the nation, spreading the message of hope and of thriving with autoimmune diseases. And so it was really just to get the word out and share the book with people. Well, halfway through what we dubbed the 50 and 50, that was our 50-state tour that we came up with. I say we, my husband and I, well, my whole family, actually, my husband and I, and whole family that lived at home, my youngest daughter. We went on this journey. And halfway through our 50 states, we had done the northern route in Hawaii. And 2 weeks before we were scheduled to go on our southern route, COVID happened. And so the whole country was shut down. And it really changed, obviously, the way that we were sharing the message of hope, because I couldn't do the presentation anymore. We couldn't assemble, right? And we couldn't travel. So everything kind of changed and went online. So I went through kind of a period there. I called it actually Transformation 2.0, where it only took me a whopping maybe 6 weeks to get right back into my surviving during COVID. It was very shocking to me how quickly I lost all of the things that I had gained over the previous 10 years. At that point, it had been about 10 years from the time I started my transformation. Actually, it had been 10 years because my transformation started when I turned 40 and COVID happened the year I turned 50. So in that 10-year span, when I had it figured out, right? I had it mastered. I was the expert in my body, and I had, I was just thriving. And then wham, it was completely taken out from underneath me. And so then I went into Transformation 2.0 to figure out what happened. Then that led into Transformation 2.0, where I went back. I actually reread my own book and realized I wasn't applying those 8 lessons, and got back in tune with my body, and got back in tune with, at that point, it was emerging as living well. Obviously, I was living those 8 lessons, but the one thing I kept hearing while I was on tour was, okay, how? So we understand the lessons and we understand that you can thrive, but how? How do you thrive? And how do you deal with just the day-to-day of living with autoimmune diseases? And so I broke it down, and that was the Transformation 2.0, was actually creating a framework of what does it look like? What are the steps to living well? And the trick is, here's the kicker. This isn't a thing like a fad diet or something like that is, it works for some and it doesn't work for others. It's very transient, right? I'm talking about a lifestyle, and I'm not talking about, it has all of the different components. And I'm not talking about, how much wealth you have or how much. I'm talking about the choices you make day in and day out for what you put in your mind, what you put in your mouth, what you put in your heart, right? Those choices you make, how you spend your time, those kinds of things have an absolute direct impact on your health. Your lifestyle has a 100% impact on your health. So after developing the framework, that's when we got back online, right? From COVID. So that's when the Change Your Story, or I'm sorry, not the Change Your Story. Change Your Story, I just posted one of the recordings. Most of them we did not record, but we had a few recordings. So that is available on YouTube if you want to see the Change Your Story presentation. It wasn't recorded professionally, so just like everything else, sound and video quality is not what you would expect necessarily, but the content is there. So if you can, again, give grace for the technology and absorb the content, hopefully it's helpful. And of course, the book is available. So season 1 of Living Wow Out Loud was really about, it was about surviving to thriving. It was about the transition. It was about kind of that extension of Change Your Story. And now season 2 is about living wow, how to live wow. And there is a second book coming. It's in process and I don't have a title yet, but there is a second book coming. But this is kind of a sneak peek here on the podcast, right? This will be more interactive, I hope. I've got to get used to the platform and the transitions before we start doing interviews and guests. But I do want to have guests and I do want to have you. I really want to engage the community. That's always been my goal with the podcast. It really was to a couple of things: to replace the tour because we weren't able to be physically touring. And to extend the tour, because that was the other thing that I would get when I was out in the communities doing the Change Your Story presentation was, can you stay here? Is there a way that you can do like a support group so that we can continue to develop this community? And of course I can't, because I can't live everywhere, but I can virtually. And so that's the other reason for the podcast. And so initially, when I decided to, I just took a break. I realized, I had done the podcast weekly with several different bonus episodes. We had put the book online as part of the podcast as well. So we just had a lot of content that I was dropping. Honestly, it was, like I said, my daughter's last year at home, and I had a lot going on. And I had gone back to work full-time as a speech language pathologist. I just needed a break. I don't know that I was burned out, but I just needed a break. And so I had decided, podcasts, movies, shows, everything kind of has seasons. And so we're just going to take a break and we'll come back with a new season in the spring. Spring is kind of my time. It's my time that I just wake up from what I feel like is death of the winter, right? That's for me. And so I'm like, okay, let's take a break in the winter and just do some deep dive and personal care and then emerge in the spring. Well, I did emerge in the spring, but it was a year later. So I spent that time with my daughter, with my family, the rest of my family, my son, my oldest daughter, everybody's kind of been home and in the area. And so I have just honestly been very selfish, and all of my living wow has been with my family. And I've just been so focused on getting that right. And I hope I'm getting that right. So now they've flown the coop and it's just me and my husband again. And I decided it was time. It was time to get back into my community. I need my community. And as I look around and I listen to different narratives and different conversations, I think you need me too, because I feel like you need that message of hope. I feel like you need the information and the inspiration. You need to know that you are enough. You need to know that you're not broken and you're not, in disrepair. That our bodies are designed to heal if we give them the environment to do so. All you have to do is cut your finger. I literally, a couple days ago, I was moving the chaise out into the sun and ran it right over my toe and just made a gross, ugly, muddy, bloody mess, right? I'm just like, that was literally 3 days ago, and you can't even tell today. I didn't do anything except go in to the bathtub, wash it off. I ran some water over it. I was on the phone actually with my daughter at the time, and she's like, "What happened?" Because I'm like, "Wah!" And so I literally rinsed it off in the bathtub, dried it off, put a Band-Aid on it, just so that I didn't even put any. Usually I use like a Silvex type of thing versus an antibiotic cream, but I didn't put any kind of ointment. I didn't even put coconut oil on it, which I put coconut oil on everything. I just put a bandage on it to keep it clean and to kind of give it a little padding because it was my toe and it was my middle toe. And I didn't want it to bang on things because it hurt really, really bad. I don't even feel it. It's healed 100% today. 100%. Just gave it the environment and my body did the healing. Okay. That's a physical, visible example of how our cells regenerate, how our immune system comes in and takes care of whatever might interrupt that healing and works when we give it the environment to do so. And that environment is internal as well as external. And I think that was one of the key things that is different about Living Wow is a few things. And I went from being a transformation coach in that surviving to thriving to now I call myself a lifestyle engineer because now we're in that thriving. It's okay. We're there. We've made the transition. Now, how do we sustain it? Another significant note is that I'm in a new season of life now as well. I already mentioned I'm an empty nester now. I'm in my mid 50s now. So, hormonally, my body has changed significantly. I'm through all of the perimenopausal that was also going on during COVID. It was a party, right? It was a party for the whole world. So I don't know why I would be exempt from that, but it rocked my world just like it rocked yours. And so anyway, we're back to the lifestyle thriving, right? The lifestyle engineer and understanding that our environment is so much more than just the food that we put in our mouth. And of course, that's where it started for me, understanding nutrition. And that's why I became a complete and total nutrition nerd. Food is medicine. And when I realized that food was not just food, not just something that tastes good and feels good, but something that fuels my body. So it went from kind of a social, emotional food to being a fuel. And then it went from just understanding the fuel to being medicine, where I can actually manipulate the food, supplements, herbs, all of those kinds of things, right? I can manipulate more and less of different types of foods, different types of, to be able to provide that cellular environment. But then I've got to also focus on what's the environment internally? What's my internal dialogue, right? What's going on in my mind? What's going on in my energy, in my spirit? Who am I around? And what's my dialogue? What's going out and what's coming in, right? All of those things are just so, so critical. And it's hard for us we can't touch them. So it's like, how do we define them? How do we recognize them? And how do we move them? And there was a big period. In fact, I was just looking at it the other day as I was writing. Which lesson was it? Let me take a peek, tell you which lesson it was. Lesson 3 is the Who Was I Born to Be? And that's where I kind of first took a little bit of a deep dive into the understanding the energy and the internal side of things. But at that point, I didn't have the tools to be able to really support that. Like I said, I went and washed off my toe and bandaged it up, and then it's healed. Well, that's easy to do physically. It's easy even to do with our nutrition and our food, but it's really, in my experience, really, really hard to do with our energy, with our spirit, with our mind, with our emotions. Um, those kinds of things are very, very personal to us and very, very um, individual. And we don't necessarily have the awareness. And then even when we have the awareness, there's a little bit of a disconnect and time lapse until we get to the tools and the application that we can actually do something about it. So long story short, that's why we're here. That's why I am here as your lifestyle engineer, living wow, thriving, again, to be your inspiration that you can do it. I'm not a one-off. I'm not special. I'm not anything different than you are, other than I've possibly farther down the road than you are. Okay. Maybe I'm there longer, or maybe I'm just at a different point in the road. And so I'm kind of there saying the bridge up ahead is burned out. It's much better to take this path and navigate through. It might be a little bit scary, but I'm here to help guide you. That's really what I am. It's just a guide and an inspiration, and then hopefully some information. That's the guide part, right? To be able to teach you so that you can apply it to your life, because we are all different, right? One of the things that I learned after I wrote the book is really about my journey, but as I shared it and as we went all across the entire country, we did make it to all 50 states. For those of you who are wondering, we did make it to all 50 states. The second half, the southern route and Alaska, looked a lot different. We didn't have any change your story presentations. We had what we called hope sessions. We just did meetups at different places in a more one-on-one situation. And it was, a lot more vlogging and just informal. There were no formal presentations on the second half, but the information was still there, and the response was still the same. Of how do we maintain it? Where do we go from here? And so that's what I really want to spend this season. Some changes that you can expect to see in this coming season will be bi-weekly. Instead of every week, we're going to do drops every other Thursday will be when you can find us. There, like I said, there's a whole, I think it's like 46 episodes or something. If you go back from the previous season, it's all audio, and we'll see how this audio video goes. I may choose to go back to audio if I don't feel like it's worth it. If it's, can I get your feedback? Can you tell me, do you like to have the video, or would you prefer to just listen, right? And maybe you're like me. Sometimes I'll have a video going, but I'm just listening to the audio, and then periodically I'll check in. So just let me know. What do you think? Give me your feedback. What do you think about the video audio combo? We will be on YouTube because of the video, although the audio is also on YouTube. And we're anywhere. YouTube is the only new one that is added in this particular season. So any of the platforms that it was on before, it still is available on. Yeah, any of them. Bi-weekly instead of weekly. What are your questions? What guests would you like me to have on? What are your questions? Because again, remember, this is to simulate and to provide that resource that people were asking for when I was on the road. They wanted to stay. They wanted a support. They wanted an ongoing, how do we keep it going? That's what this is. So plug in, share it, all of the different things, subscribe, hit notifications, all of the different things you do to make sure you know when it's happening, right? And it depends on your where you're listening, what that looks like. What's your story? I really would love to know your story and your challenges. What is the biggest concern you have right now? I know the United States, one of the things that's so cool to me and was the reason that I went, at first, once you're gone more than 6 months, I kind of feel like maybe it's easier to just fade away and not worry about it. But then I looked at my analytics and I'm like, you are all over the world. I'm here in Idaho in the United States of America. in this, just it used to be a little country town. Now we've turned into a city, but still, when I look at all of the different countries all around the globe, and I have as many downloads today as I had when I was actively putting them out. So that tells me that the need is there, that you are listening, that you do care, and it's pretty exciting. So new people are finding us. New people are, I don't know if it's because you're getting a diagnosis. I don't know if it's because somebody told you about me, and so you are sharing the podcast. I'm not sure all the deep dive because I haven't done that deep of a dive, but I do know that you're all over the world. So, it was just like the United States, England, or the UK, Canada, Australia, and now we're all over in all sorts of different countries in Africa, in Asia, in North America, South America, Europe. Literally, we're everywhere, and that is so exciting and overwhelming to me. So I would love to hear your story. I would love to hear your questions. I would love to hear what you want out of this podcast, what you need to thrive with autoimmune diseases, because you are not alone. But I have a feeling you feel alone, because I know I did. Even when I had my community and I went back into that survival mode during COVID, and that was just because, again, my mindset, all of the things I was feeding the fear. And when I realized about 6 months into it that I'm feeding the fear, this has got to change. And I went back into my, okay, let's walk out of this, right? I know better. And so we did. And that's when we started the podcast the first time and all that. So I know that you feel alone. I know that you feel scared. I know that you feel frustrated. I know that you feel tired. I know that you probably have pain. I know that you're probably like, whose body is this? What is happening in my body? Because I don't recognize it, or I don't like it, right? I think that all those different narratives have ran rampant throughout my autoimmune journey. So I know you feel that, and you're not alone. Okay. And that's why I'm here. And that's hopefully, as we go over the WOW framework, and I'm sorry if I'm looking up and it looks weird. I have a big chalkboard on my wall that has the Living WOW framework to become the expert in your body. And so it's just a habit for me I have it in front of me, along with my battle board. Shout out to Brendan Burchard. I do a battle board from a decade ago. I love that. So it's kind of, and then above it, my vision life board. So that's what I'm looking at all day, every day when I'm on my computer doing my teletherapy. And I'm in the same studio when I'm recording this. So if I'm looking up, I'm looking at my dreams. I'm looking at my quarter. What do I want to accomplish? Who do I want to reach? What difference do I want to make? And then I have the new book, all of the different components. And so if I'm doing that, that's what I'm looking at, and why it looks weird. When I'm on audio, you don't see it, but on video, again, I strive for excellence, not perfection. So I hope it's a good content for you that's worthwhile. Not necessarily looking at my mug the whole time. So we'll see if we decide to keep the video or not. Let me know your thoughts. What else? What else do I want to bring up that I haven't? I would be amiss. And this won't be relevant in 10 years. Maybe it will be. But I mentioned, I just want to do a quick shout out, because I think this will be the only episode, maybe the next couple of episodes will actually land before Jenna Ray has her debut premiere. But just a quick shout out for my assistant, and I'm going to try not to cry. So that first journey, that sabbatical, all those things, very, very much around Jenna Ray. And Jenna Ray is my baby. She turned 18 last summer and graduated from high school. Actually graduated from high school at 17, turned 18, and went to Hollywood to follow her dreams. And that girl is living wow. And I'm so proud of her. That's where the emotion comes from. I'm just so proud of her. And as I'm launching this second batch, I realize how much of an assistant she truly was, how important she was on the tour. She did all of the video and the book sales and, got everything ready for me and took the payment while I was signing books and stuff like that. And you'll see her on the vlog. She was actually the inspiration behind the vlog. That girl was born a performer. She's always wanted to be a singer, a dancer, a performer. And she's followed her dreams. And she is now living in Los Angeles and releasing her debut album on her birthday. So on June 30th, 2024. So if you have an opportunity, and you're curious, I think that's where it always comes from. What is this kid, this young girl that has got her dreams just holding on tight? And she is so determined to not let anybody steal them from her. And so I'm really, really proud of her. She's doing so much more than I thought she was going to do when she went down it. Yeah, I mean, it's terrifying for a mom from Idaho to send her kid off to Hollywood, California. But she's got grit and she's got talent and she is amazing. I'm so, so excited for you to hear. It's called Life Inside My Head. And it's her first, she's an indie pop, so independent singer-songwriter. And you can find her. I think she has a distribution kit. I think it's going to be available everywhere. So Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you get your music, I believe it will be available. And you can follow her on TikTok, Instagram. She's there as well. There are some Jenna Rays that are country artists. That's not my Jenna Ray, but anyway, that's my shameless plug at the end of the podcast. That'll probably be the nugget you get today. Go find Jenna Ray, Life Inside My Head. Will be out, released on June 30th, 2024, her 19th birthday. And this mama is one proud mama. She is the product of Living Wow. And I'm so, so proud of her. Go back if you're curious about the transition from surviving to thriving. And since we're just doing every other week, if you want to fill in some time, you go back and listen to those other episodes. We have lots of tips and lots of things on getting out of that cycle and using the 8 lessons to transform your life. And then join us on Thursdays, every other Thursday. Come back and join us for Thriving with Autoimmune Diseases, Living Wow Out Loud. Until next time, shine on. Hey, if you find value here on the Living Wow Out Loud podcast, will you please share it with your friends and take a minute to rate it on the platform that you're listening on? That's how we live wow out loud. You know that more people need hope and they need the messages shared. And that's how we get recognized among all the noise. This is where you find your voice. Will you please share and subscribe and rate so that we can grow?